Okay, so for this deep dive, we're going to try and move, well, way past the usual postcard image of Brazil.
Yep. Yep.
Today, we are really immersing ourselves in what our sources say is the true cultural core of the nation, the Northeast, or as everyone there calls it, the Nordest.
And this is such a vital mission. We've gone through a stack of material on this, and the consensus is clear. If you only know Rio and São Paulo, you're just missing the fundamental story.
You really are.
The Nordeste is the cultural foundation of Brazil. It's the bedrock.
And you can feel that. The pride people from the region have, it's unmistakable. You hear it right away in their accent.
You really do.
It's a sound that just carries so much warmth, so much tradition, and you see it in a culture that is just so prolific, so powerful. It basically defined the artistic imagination of the whole country.
And we have to start at the literal beginning. This isn't just, one region among many.
No.
It's Brazil's historical birthplace. The sources are definitive on this. When the Portuguese first arrived on the continent back in 1500, they landed right here.
So the entire story starts on the Nordeste coast.
It all starts there. And that historical weight, that sense of being the origin point, it defines everything that comes after.
That context is perfect. It anchors us. So let's jump into the physical reality, the thing that shapes the Nordestino character today. Our sources call it a profound geographical duality.
It's almost schizophrenic, yeah.
Yeah.
A region of intense contrast.
Running from what, tropical abundance to brutal scarcity?
It's the tension between the littoral and the Sertão. So first you have the littoral, the coast.
Right.
Thousands of miles of Atlantic coastline.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Brazil you see in the travel brochures. Tropical, lush, and historically it was the center of the massive sugarcane economy.
Which built all that early colonial wealth.
Exactly. And today, globally, this area is a tourism titan.
Oh, for sure. We're talking about places that are world famous. Fernando de Noronha, Porto de Galinhas, Jericoacoara. The landscape is just pure, stunningly beautiful coastline.
And it's driven entirely by sun, sand, and global tourism revenue.
But that's only half the story.
Not even. To understand the true heart of the region, you have to turn your back on that beautiful ocean and just drive inland.
Okay.
The whole psychological and sociological character of the Nordeste is rooted in the interior, in the Sertão.
The hinterland. So this is where the landscape just flips completely. From paradise to hardship. What defines the Sertão geographically?
It's a semi-arid zone. The defining feature is extreme irregularity in its rainfall.
So it's not a true desert.
No, not at all. It does see rain, but it's completely unpredictable. It might be too short or way too violent. And this leads to these devastating cyclical droughts.
The secas.
The secas. And they have historically just ravaged communities.
Exactly. And the vegetation there is unique, isn't it?
It is, and the vegetation itself is a symbol of that resilience we're talking about. The biome is called the Caatinga.
Which means white forest in the indigenous Tupi language.
Right. It refers to how the thorny, scrubby bushes lose their leaves during the long, dry season. So you're looking at a land of low, dense, thorny growth. And yes, lots and lots of cactus. A harsh, demanding environment. One that requires constant adaptation just to survive.
So this isn't just about the environment, it's a worldview. The coast is offering ease and wealth, and the interior is demanding grit and, well, endurance?
Precisely. And what's so fascinating here is how that geography defines not just the landscape, but the very character of the people. This harshness, this history of severe droughts and scarcity.
Yeah.
The sources identify that as the direct source of the region's immense resilience, its strength.
That's a crucial insight, that the difficulty is the forge. The people who survived the succas didn't just inherit land, they inherited a kind of rugged DNA for survival.
Exactly. The difficulty creates the strength. If you connect this to the bigger picture, the historical need to adapt, to endure massive challenges like famine and forced migration, it created a kind of cultural armor.
An armor that's now their greatest asset.
Totally. They learned to survive on the absolute smallest of margins, and that deep-seated adaptability is a quality the entire country recognizes in them.
That resilience is the perfect setup for our next section. Because the challenges weren't just geographical, they deeply influenced the region's artistic output.
Oh, massively.
And here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. Despite the interior's challenges and lack of resources, culturally, the Northeast just punches so far above its weight.
It's a cultural superpower within Brazil, no question. It dominates the national artistic scene,
Especially in music.
absolutely in music. We're talking about three major forms that came exclusively from here and are now staples across the whole country: frevo, axe, and forró.
And these aren't just obscure folk traditions. These are rhythms that define modern Brazilian popular music.
Right. Let's talk about forró, for instance. It isn't just a dance. Our sources describe it as the musical identity of migration.
What does that mean?
Well, it carried the spirit of the Nordeste, the accordion, the zabumba drum, with the millions of people who had to move south for economic opportunities. It was the sound that kept their roots alive.
And then you have something totally different, like frevo.
Pure kinetic energy. Born in Recife and Olinda, it's got these incredibly fast rhythms, and the dancers are doing acrobatics, holding a little parasol. It's dizzying.
It's so physically demanding. And it ties right back to that joyful spirit, that defiance we were talking about.
Exactly. Now, we have to talk about the festivals, because you can't talk about Brazilian celebration and only mention Carnival in Rio.
No, you can't. The sources insist that the scale of the São João, the June festivals, demands equal attention.
This is a major insight that gets lost internationally. São João is the mid-year celebration. It's focused on traditional figures, the harvest cycle, not Lent.
And in cities like Campina Grande, the celebrations are just gargantuan.
They're described as being culturally and logistically as large as the famous carnival celebrations down south.
That comparison just forces you to completely recalibrate your idea of Brazilian culture. It's not a single focus.
It's not. It's divided between that coastal pre-Lenten spectacle and this deep agricultural interior tradition. It's the Nordeste celebrating its own rhythm.
Okay, moving past music. There's a unique literary tradition that keeps the folklore alive, literally available on the streets.
Ah, yes. The world of cordel literature.
Tell us about that. It's fascinating.
Cordel literature is amazing. They're these inexpensive, often hand-printed folk stories, all written in verse, and they're sold on strings.
Hung on a cord, right. That's where the name comes from.
Exactly. They often have these really dramatic woodcut illustrations. It's the accessible, immediate storytelling of the region, mixing history with religious fables.
It's like democratizing epic poetry. And central to so many of those epic tales is the figure of Lampião.
He's more than a character. He's a foundational myth.
So who was he?
Lampião was the outlaw leader of the Cangaço, this social bandit movement in the Sertão back in the early 20th century.
A bandit.
But our sources define him specifically as the chaotic, good bandit figure. And that distinction matters.
Why?
Because it reflects a deep, deep skepticism toward official, distant government authority.
So he's not just an anarchist. He's sometimes seen as a kind of Robin Hood, a redistributor of wealth, or a hero fighting a corrupt system.
Exactly. He's a moral paradox born out of a paradoxical landscape. And the fact that the Nordeste mythologizes this figure tells you everything about their historical struggle. He represents that deep desire for justice in a land of historical injustice.
And that intensity, that strong, unapologetic character, it's mirrored directly in the cuisine.
It's an edible reflection of the region's identity, for sure.
The food is distinctly different, right? Driven by preservation techniques, unique ingredients.
Oh, yeah. The sources describe the flavors as noticeably spicier, stronger, more pungent than the milder, often Italian-influenced food you find in the South.
And that historical difficulty, does it translate directly into the flavors?
It does, both through necessity and influence. You take carne de sol, for example. It's salted, dried meat.
A technique born out of needing to preserve protein in a hot, arid climate before refrigeration.
Exactly. It's survival food that was elevated to a delicacy.
And then there's the African influence along the coast, which is incredibly strong.
Absolutely. You have to think about vatapá and acarajé. Vatapá is this rich, creamy stew made with bread, shrimp, coconut milk. Acarajé is a fried ball of mashed black-eyed peas, often stuffed with that vatapá, and fried in dende, or palm oil.
They're iconic. They're regional markers that reinforce that powerful, distinct flavor identity.
Unique to the Nordeste.
Okay, so we have to address what is probably the most difficult reality that the sources mentioned, the social dynamic.
Yeah.
Despite all this deep culture, this history, this artistic dominance, Northeasterners, the Nordestinos, often face severe prejudice from the richer South and Southeast.
It's a crucial and often painful internal tension in Brazil. Economic power is often tried to overshadow historical and cultural contribution.
And people who migrate south for work can face stereotyping,
Right.
Being seen as less educated or less sophisticated.
That's the stereotype. It's an internal bias rooted in historical economic disparity. It's viewing the Nordestino only through the lens of the Sertão's poverty, not its incredible culture.
Oh, and this is the flip side, right? The sources provide this powerful analysis of the other side of that coin.
They do.
While Nordestinos face this prejudice, they are universally celebrated, even by those who might hold that bias, for a set of specific positive traits. And these traits are their strength.
This is the resilience of the Sertão manifesting socially.
So what are those traits? What do the sources highlight?
Joy, humor, and a highly, highly regarded work ethic. And these are not just, pleasant adjectives.
They're survival tools.
They're psychological tools of survival.
Mm.
Humor is the shield against constant hardship. Joy is a form of defiance against scarcity. And the work ethic is the inheritance of generations who had to struggle against the Caatinga just to grow anything.
So the sources essentially reframe the entire narrative. They're not defined by the prejudice they face.
Not at all. They're defined by the immense strength and adaptability they cultivated in the face of the Sertão's difficulties.
And that strength is visible across the whole country. That famous Nordestino work ethic is what fuels so much economic activity everywhere else in Brazil.
All due to decades of internal migration.
Mm-hmm.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, the strength born out of the Sertão transforms this geography of hardship into the birthplace of immense national character. They are, in the purest sense, the survivors of Brazil.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started this deep dive wanting to look past the usual suspects, and the sources deliver a very clear, very forceful conclusion.
They really do.
You cannot claim to know the true soul of Brazil if you've only visited Rio and São Paulo.
It's just not possible. The Nordeste is the essential stop for any true cultural understanding. It gives you the historical birthplace, the deepest cultural roots, and paradoxically, often the warmest, most resilient hospitality in the whole nation.
It's a place where historical hardship exists right alongside this overwhelming, defiant cultural warmth.
It's that tension again.
This incredible, powerful tension. The tropical luxury of the literal right next to the brutal, demanding reality of the Sertão. And yet, it's the hardship of the interior that seems to have forged the most powerful, enduring cultural identity.
An identity that shapes the entire nation.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. It connects right back to that core divide.
Between the literal and the Sertão.
We've established that the deepest roots, the birthplace, that renowned resilience, it's all found in the demanding interior, in the Sertão.
But the international image, the economic power, is still so heavily tied to the tropical coast, the literal.
So here's the question for you to think about. If the deepest national character was forged by the interior, what aspects of Brazil's current modern global identity are still fundamentally defined by the ease of the coast versus the resilient, powerful, and enduring spirit of the Sertão?
Something to consider the next time you hear a driving Forró beat or encounter the unmistakable warmth of a Nordestino.